Hi, I'm Pam, and today I'm talking about the most interesting things I saw at E3 this year. So the past few days we've been having E3 for 2021 in a somewhat different capacity than normal. It was all online this year, but there were still a number of presentations by a number of different companies and collectives, and I think a lot of really exciting announcements made, whether for brand new games or things that were announced before, that we got some more details about this time. I actually made the somewhat last-minute decision to co-stream a bunch of the presentations, starting with the Summer of Games on Thursday, hosted by Jeff Keighley, and the Day of the Devs from Double Fine Entertainment. And then on Saturday, I did the Guerrilla Collective presentation. And then, of course, on Sunday, I did Microsoft and Bethesda. Just sort of picked the conferences that I was most interested in watching myself. If you didn't get a chance to watch those, they are still live up on my channel, so you can watch them anytime you like. And to the people who were there, thank you so much for joining and chatting. Had a really good time just seeing all the game announcements and being able to talk about them with a bunch of other people. Overall, I thought that the E3 announcements were pretty good this year. The Xbox presentation in particular, I found to be quite great. The Guerrilla Collective one was also full of interesting indie games. And I know every year there's a lot of complaints that, oh, nothing interesting happened, who's gonna win E3? I thought that there was a lot of games that I'm looking forward to. I was actually gonna make a top 10 for this video and then realized I just couldn't narrow it down to 10 because there were so many games I found myself writing down that I had to put on my Steam wishlist or just remember to look up later on when they're supposed to be coming out. So in no particular order, the games that I'm most excited about from E3 this year, first of all, we have 12 Minutes, which is one that was announced, I think last year, and it was also on my video of games I'm most anticipating coming out this year, and we did get a new trailer for it. It didn't particularly show us anything different than before, but it does have a rather simple concept. I feel like the first trailer gave me a really good idea of what it was. It's a 12-minute time-looping mystery game where you play a man whose wife is accused of murder by the police, and as they come in, things just go terribly, terribly wrong, and then it sort of resets and you have to use what you learned to try to get out of this situation in a more successful way. So this is going to be coming out on August 19th, and it's on Xbox and PC. It will be on Game Pass day one. Yeah, really looking forward to that and happy to have a release date that's fairly close in the future. Next up is Inscryption, and this is one that I didn't see live. I believe it was on the Devolver Digital presentation, but this is a game by Daniel Mullins, who previously made Pony Island, which I really liked, and The Hex, which I absolutely loved. He tends to make very sort of meta genre-bending games, and this one looks to be part deck builder, part escape room. It's kind of got a Hand of Fate vibe, which is a deck building game that I really liked, but I'm sure this one is going to be much, much creepier, and you'll see in the trailer that some unexpected things happen that you wouldn't normally see in a deck building game. It's supposed to be just a very dramatic sort of horror inspired game. I'm sure again this one will be quite meta and throw in all kinds of different elements, and just very excited to see that there's a new game on the horizon from Daniel Mullins. This is coming out in 2021, I believe, or maybe it's early access in 2021, I'm not positive. I assume it's only going to be on PC since that was the case with his other ones. And now a game that was a bit of a surprise to me, A Plague Tale Requiem, which is the sequel to A Plague Tale Innocence, one of my favorite games from the past few years, about a girl and her brother who are escaping the Inquisition, as well as a horrible plague of rats. I'm excited to hear that this game is getting a sequel at all, and especially that it's coming so soon. This is supposed to be coming out in 2022 sometime for Xbox and PlayStation and PC, I think. I've lost my spot in my notes. Yes, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. By the trailer, it looks like the two main characters have gotten a little older. I'm sure that Hugo has learned to use his powers a little bit more, and Amicia has also grown and become more skilled as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to more of a Plague Tale and sort of maybe stepping up the gameplay and those sort of like stealth puzzle elements. The next game is Replaced, and it seems like at a lot of the Xbox conferences, there's one particular pixel art, neon, cyberpunk styled game that kind of steals the show. A few years ago, it was The Last Night, which I haven't heard anything about in a while. This time it was Replaced, which is a game that looks a lot like Blade Runner. It's a very 80s aesthetic, and you play an AI that has been downloaded into someone's body against your will, and it looks like an action sort of brawler type of game. The artwork and the aesthetic are just amazing looking, just like very nice. It looks like pixel graphics. It was a little bit hard to tell if it was pixel art or not, but it was just an absolutely beautiful game. It's supposed to be coming out for Xbox and PC in 2022. So I believe this next one is what opened up the Guerrilla Collective show, and it is Firegirl, which is an adorable looking action game where you're playing a new firefighter and you have to fight fires, rescue civilians, and sort of build up your base of operations. This just looks absolutely adorable. You have your fire hose, which also functions as a jetpack, and you go through sort of like action platforming scenes to put out fires and rescue everyone trapped within them. The fires and levels are procedurally generated, so they're sort of evolving and changing each time, and I really like the idea that you also have your hub in the firehouse where you can upgrade your equipment, answer fan mail, hire new staff, things like that. And apparently there is a big sort of overarching mystery to the game as well about why all of these fires are happening. This game is planned for later this year and is supposed to be coming out both on PC and consoles. Another game that I featured on my games I'm most looking forward to this year video a few months back is Vampire the Masquerade Swansong, which is being made by the same people who made the game The Council, which was a very intriguing adventure RPG game. This, as opposed to most of the Vampire the Masquerade games that have come out recently, is not just a visual novel, but an actual like 3D free roaming kind of game. You play as 3 different characters, and this weekend they put out a new trailer that introduces the new saddle shoe wearing Malkavian character who is out looking for her missing daughter, who may or may not exist. Still very much looking forward to this, especially with all of the turmoil that Bloodlines 2 has come under. This is the one I'm sort of hanging my hopes on now. This is still planned to come out later this year on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. One game that looked very intriguing during the Guerrilla Collective presentation is called Death Trash, and this is a very gross looking post-apocalyptic RPG. There actually wasn't that much that I gleaned just from the trailer during the actual presentation. However, Ragnarox, a fantastic YouTube creator, got an exclusive look at the game and has made like a 25-minute video going over it and his impressions at this early stage. And that told me a lot more about it, and it seems like something I will definitely be wanting to play when it comes out. It would basically started as someone who was unhappy with the progression of the Fallout games once they turned into 3D open world games, and decided that he was just gonna make his own. So it's basically like a classic style RPG, but with more modern action combat, good writing, good kind of quests, and just like a weird kind of grotesque atmosphere all throughout. I believe this is coming to early access sometime this year, so probably won't be out for real until next year or later. A surprise for me was 2 Point Campus, which is by the same developers who made 2 Point Hospital recently, which itself was a spiritual successor to Theme Hospital. These are very sort of funny and irreverent Sims. This one is on a, I'm assuming, university campus where you're building different like classes and activities and managing students and things like that. It has the same sort of fun kind of look as the last game, and I will definitely play this. I really like those kind of humorous simulation games. This is planned for 2022 and will be coming out for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. So I didn't end up watching the Nintendo Direct since I'm generally not as interested in the big title Nintendo games. However, there was a surprise in this one, and that is Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater, which is not a new game, but it is something that was relegated to just coming out on the Wii U, which means probably about 12 people played it. It is now getting a re-release and improvements basically everywhere. I thought it would be just Switch, but it's Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, Steam. I love the Fatal Frame series. They're some of the best survival horror out there, and I didn't get a chance to play this one. So I'm very excited that this is getting a release on other consoles, and I'm hoping it means that some of the early Fatal Frames will go that way as well. I believe this is coming out later this year. The other thing that was announced at the Nintendo Direct that I'm very excited about is Danganronpa Decadence. I've been really interested in playing through the Danganronpa games, but I believe when they first came out, they were only available on PSP or Vita, one of those consoles which I never had or never really had an interest in playing. But I've really wanted to play these, and they are getting released on Switch, both 4 games in one on a physical edition or each separately digitally. These are sort of a combination between like action-y as well as visual novel games, and they're very like battle royale, sort of mystery, like battle royale like the book, not Fortnite, and then with sort of like mystery elements, and they just look really interesting. A lot of people compared Paradise Killer, which is one of my favorite games of the last few years, to Danganronpa, so I've really been wanting to try them out, so I'm happy I will finally have a chance. A beautiful looking game that got some coverage in a couple presentations is called Behind the Frame, and this is a very Studio Ghibli inspired looking game. You play a painter who is sort of in her apartment, painting things, looking out her window. It looks like a very chill kind of adventure puzzle game. Apparently it is going to have some sort of escape room mechanics, except again in a rather chill, relaxed manner, as you find out that your apartment is actually full of a lot of secrets and go out to discover them. So this looks really nice, and it's going to be coming out later this year on PC. Also, since I've been getting really into 4-player co-op games and have actually had some friends to play online with recently, I have a lot to look forward to for those kind of games. First of all, Back 4 Blood is coming out on October 12th. It's, I think, on everything but Switch, but it's also going to be on Game Pass day 1. This is made by a bunch of the same developers that made Left 4 Dead, and it looks very similar, a co-op zombie fighting and survival game, except there are also some giant zombies in this one. There's also Anacrusis, which also has some developers from the original Left 4 Dead, except this one has a whole different vibe, a sort of swinging 70s aesthetic, and monsters instead of zombies. This one is coming out in the fall for Xbox and PC, and then coming fairly soon at the end of July, I think, is Ascent, which is also coming out on Game Pass, which is like an isometric, more cyberpunk-y kind of game that you could also play solo. But yeah, looking forward to trying out all of those, especially since I'll be able to play them for free on Game Pass. Man, I don't know how anyone could say this was a bad E3. I have so many games to talk about. I'm just gonna go through a few more sort of honorable mentions very quickly. There's going to be a new Mario Rabbids game called Spark of Hope. It looks much more like a Mario Galaxy type aesthetic. I quite enjoyed the first one and will definitely play another one. There's a game called White Shadows coming out later this year, which is like a black and white, very atmospheric, sort of Tim Burton-esque cinematic platformer where you play a little raven girl, which looks great. There is Phantom Abyss, which is an asynchronous multiplayer, like a temple run kind of game, where you're going through these ruins and looking for the treasure at the end of the game. Vocabulantis is one of the most visually striking games that I saw. It is all done using stop motion animation. It's another, looks like a cinematic platformer. This one isn't planned for a few years, though. I think it's 2024 when it's planned to be out. Ayuden Chronicle, the sort of Suikoden spiritual successor that was so successful on Kickstarter, looks amazing. They showed off the trailer and the art style of the 2D characters on the 3D backgrounds just looked beautiful. This is another one, it won't be out for a while. Its planned date of 2023. There is Metroid Dread, which is a new 2D Metroid game, which I will definitely give a shot to. There's Hunt the Night and Elderand, both of which are sort of Castlevania-style action RPG games. There's Bullets Per Minute, which is a rhythm first-person shooter. Honestly, there was just so many games I saw that looked really interesting, and of course we won't know how well they turn out until they actually come out, but there's definitely a lot to look forward to both this year and in the coming years. Oh, and just because I'm sure someone will ask me about this, there was another Vampire the Masquerade game. This one is called Blood Hunt, and this is a battle royale, which is like, and it's a battle royale where the vampires use guns, so not really up my alley. Vampire the Masquerade is interesting because of like all the story and lore, which is why so many of the games end up being visual novels, but yeah, a vampire shooting battle royale doesn't really do much for me. So that's it. That was, I don't know, 20-ish games that I'm pretty excited about from E3 this year. Leave me a comment, let me know what games you're most looking forward to. I just want to say, especially for the indie games, if you can just put these on your Steam wish list, even if you plan on getting them on console if they're available there, it really does help the developers in terms of making their games more visible to more people. So that's just something very easy and free that you can do to help them out. And yeah, tell me what you're looking forward to. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.